The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Project Entertainment Network presents My Favorite Story, an anthology featuring short fiction written by the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network podcasts, with
Mary Sangiovanni and Brian Keene from The Horror Show,
Chuck Border, Aaron Sweet, El Mahari and Armand Rosamilia of The Mando Method,
Jeannie Engel of Origins,
Bizung's Mr. Frank,
Tom Clark from Necrocast, It On,
It Cooks, Amber Fallon,
Three Guys with Beards, Christopher Golden, Jim Moore and Jonathan Maybury,
The Buttercup of Doom, Kelly Owen,
Matters of Faith's J. Wilburn,
John Urbansic of Eight Stains.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology from Project Entertainment Network, available on Kindle, Nook, and soon in paperback from the Project Entertainment Network store.
Hey folks, Brian Keene here. You know, summer's over. We're entering the fall and then the winter. Halloween's coming up, Thanksgiving, and then of course the holiday shopping season. Speaking of the holiday shopping season, let me tell you about subculturecorsets.com. They've got everything you need for everyone on your list for this holiday season. Clothing, accessories, gifts, books, you name it, they've got it. They sponsor every show on the Project Entertainment Network, including this one. So please give them your business. Visit subculturecorsets.com.
Project Entertainment Network presents You Gotta Be Kidding, debunking today's modern myths, with hosts, speculative fiction writers Skip Novak and Tom Clark, Bigfoot, Elvis, Illuminati, JFK, New World Order, Flat Earth, reptilians, all popular modern conspiracy theories, all complete bullcrap, and we'll tell you why.
You gotta be kidding.
A patron-exclusive podcast for Project Entertainment Network.
It's all lies, every word of it.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, Excelsior to you today, sir.
Excelsior to you as well, my friend. You know what, Chris? This week, I'm very excited. We actually have a sponsor for this week's show. That's right. This week's show is brought to you by Victor Laval's Destroyer. We all know the story of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. But do you remember at the end of that novel, the creature escapes into the wilds of the Arctic? It has this unnatural long lifespan, so it continues to live up until today, right now. It saw its dreaded enemy, Victor Frankenstein, die, but it learns there is one final descendant still living. A woman this time, a scientist living in Montana. And thus, the monster begins its journey toward her to finish its blood feud with the Frankenstein line. But that woman has her own story. Her name is Dr. Josephine Baker, the world's greatest expert in nanotechnology. She's also the mother of a teenage son, a boy who was recently killed by a member of the Chicago police. The cop saw a black boy and feared for his life, but Josephine's son lost his. Josephine, though, is a lot like her great old Uncle Victor. She, too, has decided to defy the rules that divide the living and the dead. Using nanotechnology, she brings her murdered son back to life. But she and the boy don't realize the original creation is almost at their doorstep. What will happen when all three come face to face? Victor Laval's Destroyer is a mind-bending blend of horror and science fiction. It combines Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with concerns ripped straight from current events. The Onion's AV Club describes it as thrilling, tragic, and topical. It's illustrated with astounding beauty and flair and available in trade paperback right now from Boom Studios. So we thank Victor and Boom Studios for sponsoring this week's show.
You know, I just have to jump in and say, now the show is over. I mean, that's the longest ad we've ever had on any podcast.
It's a great ad.
But, you know, the important thing is that Victor has now sponsored the show that he is one of the only 4 listeners of.
Have you read Destroyer?
I have not read it yet, but I did speak with Victor about it at StokerCon, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. I also tried to, once he was explaining what the plot was, I tried to force upon him the original Marvel Comics Monster of Frankenstein, which startlingly he had never read. So I hopefully he's going to do that. I'm sure we'll end up doing it on this show eventually.
I'm a sucker for anything Frankenstein, and I loved Destroyer. I'm not saying that because it's a sponsor of the show. I genuinely love the book. I love anything that takes the old familiar tropes that we all know and love and pushes them and does new things with them, because I think that's what horror fiction needs to do. And I love Destroyer, so I highly recommend it to all four of our listeners, one of which is the guy who wrote it.
All right. All right, well, let's move on now, my friend. Brian, this is an important day in the history of this show, because we are going to be talking about some of the most pleasurable issues in the entire run of the Defenders. They're terrible, and by terrible I mean wonderful.
Yep.
There's nothing but nonsense in here, but it is still a pleasure. Having just reread it, it remains a massive pleasure to read these issues.
It is. We're going to talk about Defenders 62 through 65. We may or may not get to 65, but 62 through 64 comprise a trilogy of issues, easily David Kraft's best storyline during his run on the book.
Certainly the most fun he had while working on this book.
Yeah, I mean, I loved these three issues as a kid. It was everything I wanted in a comic book. Going back and rereading them as an adult, they're still delightful.
They are.
They really are. There's some really funny character work here. And it all starts with that asshole whom we all loathe, Dollar Bill.
All right, well, let's get to it. So I just want to start issue 62, again, one of the great covers. But I want to point out, Brian, that in this story, folks, we have the setup of this story is that Dollar Bill, who, if you've been following the show, has attached himself like a leech to the Defenders. He's a wannabe filmmaker or documentary filmmaker who's been filming their exploits recently, and he has decided, and we'll get into it, but I just want to explain what's going on here. He's decided that he is going to do a little TV documentary about the Defenders, which ends with him inviting anyone with superpowers to come out and join the Defenders, because that's all you have to do is proclaim yourself a Defender and you are one. So I just want to say that we see a shit ton of superheroes and supervillains in these three issues. But interestingly, Brian, the reason I bring it up is because if you look at the cover of issue 62, it includes several heroes who do not appear.
Angel is on there. Angel from the X-Men. Now, spoiler alert, Angel does become a member of the Defenders
eventually. But Angel is there. Spider-Woman is there. The Human Torch is there. And Luke Cage is there. And none of them show up in this issue.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Or in this story.
You're right.
So I thought that was very interesting. I just think it was somebody said, everybody in the Marvel Universe is going to come down, so just draw people. Anyway, this issue is written by David Kraft and drawn by Sal Buscema's back on the Defenders in this issue, with Jim Mooney on inks. And we open, Brian, with the four core Defenders here, Hellcat, Hulk, Valkyrie, and Nighthawk, playing Frisbee.
Or as Hulk calls it, Frisbee, FRIZZ -BEE.
So they're playing superpowered Frisbee, which Hulk does not understand. But he seems to be having fun until he gets the Frisbee, throws it at Valkyrie, and knocks her into a tree with it.
Right. And then Dollar Bill comes rushing out and surprises them all with the announcement that a TV documentary he made about the Defenders is just about to air on television. This is the first the Defenders have heard of this documentary, by the way, and Nighthawk loses his shit.
Nighthawk is incredibly unhappy about this. Patsy Walker, a.k.a. Hellcat, a former fashion model, is ecstatic about the idea of being on TV. And Hulk just thinks the whole thing is stupid, and Valkyrie's basically telling Nighthawk to chill out. There's nothing they can do about it now. She's the apologist for Dollar Bill in this story, over and over again.
Right. So the documentary begins. Basically, the documentary itself is a recap of previous issues of the Defenders. We go through Xenogenesis and Lunatic and all that. I don't know that we need to recap it here, but I will say what Sal Buscema does with the panel layout is interesting.
Well, he's showing us that Dollar Bill's camera work leaves something to be desired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what a couple interesting things of note. If you remember 2 episodes ago, when we recapped Spider-Man and the Defenders fighting Lunatic, Lunatic gets away, and nobody knew how he did. Well, it turns out Dollar Bill knew how he escaped the entire time because he filmed it.
And he didn't bother to tell the Defenders.
Yeah, he didn't tell anybody. Hulk halfway through the documentary sums up what we, the readers, are thinking. Show is dumb.
Yeah.
But it goes on, and yes, Dollar Bill invites anyone with superpowers to come be a Defender. He puts the address of Kyle Richmond's Riding Academy on the television.
On the screen.
And invites
outing Kyle Richmond as at least as the financier of the Defenders. And then he identifies himself as their press agent. There you go.
And he brands them as Dollar Bill's Dynamic Defenders.
Exactly. And that is
which
the last
causes
straw.
Nighthawk to lose his shit even more.
Yeah, that is the last straw. Nighthawk looks like he's about to beat Dollar Bill to death, and that would have been a much better story. Although, again, I love this story, but I do want to see Nighthawk beat the shit out of Dollar Bill. You know
who our 5th listener is?
Who's our 5th listener?
Cullen Bunn. And Cullen Bunn has done several Marvel miniseries called Deadpool Kills ...
We want a one-shot Deadpool kills Dollar Bill.
Yeah, and Mike Hawthorne, longtime artist on Deadpool. He's a neighbor of mine. He's a dear friend. Mike, Cullen, I want Deadpool kills Dollar Bill over and over and over again.
Well, it could just be called Deadpool kills the annoying fuckers of the Marvel Universe. There could just be a one-shot where, like, each page is one of the most annoying characters in Marvel history being murdered. But in any case, Dollar Bill would be my favorite of those. So
we then go to Russia. We should talk about Russia.
Oh, yeah.
Because while Nighthawk is ready to just beat the stuffing out of Dollar Bill, we rejoin codename Sergei, a.k.a. the Presence, and he's flying over that area in Siberia where he set off that nuclear bomb. And we learned that he has also been experimenting with biotechnology there, genetic tampering.
Right.
And now his sin against humanity has come back to haunt him and his people.
Right.
That's about as ominous as this issue gets.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, though? I will say, Brian, that I had remembered fondly a little bit the codename Sergei and Red Guardian story. And when we were reading the earlier exploits of those characters in this series, I was like, why did I have a fond memory of this? This is so boring and overwritten. And in these few issues, these 4 issues really, this is the part of the story I remember liking. So now that we got to this, I was like, oh, I actually liked this one, this version of the story. So anyway,
it's a shame that they're relegated to the interlude portions of the series. Because there's some really good character development there with both of them.
Yeah, and it gets in 65 we'll get to a lot more of that. But yes, so basically the next morning there's a lot of knocking and doorbell ringing at the Richmond Riding Academy, and Kyle is upset because, as quote, there's enough noise to raise the dead, and the 8th wonder of the world, meaning Dollar Bill, is sleeping right through the chaos he created. So Kyle opens the door thinking there's going to be who's first, which hero has shown up first. And he opens the door, Brian, and would you like to take the pleasure of explaining who's at the front door?
Yes, there's a throng of heroes. Now, keep in mind, this is 1970s Marvel, so some of these characters have changed. We have Carol Danvers, who is still Ms. Marvel at the time. We have Damian Hellstrom, son of Satan, who is already a Defender, but has shown up again. We have Jack of Hearts. From the X-Men, we have Polaris and Havoc. We have Stingray, Iron Fist, Hercules, Black Goliath, Nova, who is still very much a teenager at this point.
Yep.
Marvel Man, who will later on become Quasar.
Captain Marvel is also there.
Captain Marvel is there.
We see the dangling feet of two people who are sitting on the roof. That would be the Falcon and the Prowler.
Right.
And Brian, because this is the first panel we see him in, I just want to take a moment to appreciate one of my favorite fallen heroes of the 1970s, Bill Foster, a.k.a. Black Goliath, who I always thought was super freaking cool.
Absolutely.
And I was so sad when they finally brought him back, only to kill him in, was it Civil War or Secret Empire?
It was Civil War. I'm sure they've undone that by now, right?
I don't know. I don't know if they've undone it. I hope they have. But if not, I urge anyone at Marvel, Cullen Bunn, if you're listening to this, please bring Black Goliath back as just Goliath. We don't have a Goliath right now. So I think that would be awesome. I love Bill Foster as Black Goliath.
Absolutely. I agree. And I was delighted.
He briefly had his own series for those people who don't know who the hell we're talking about. I think it only lasted about 8 issues, but
wasn't he also in the Tales to Astonish relaunch in the 70s as well, I believe?
Possibly.
I think there's enough material there. Marvel could collect his 70s appearances in a trade paperback.
For sure.
So, of course, I'm happy to see Hercules. I always loved Hercules. Never cared for Thor. I like the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Thor, but never cared for Thor in the comics. Loved Hercules.
Yes.
Because he's pompous and he's an ass, but he can back it up.
And he drinks a shit ton of beer.
Yes, he does.
Or
so, Nighthawk, enraged by this, grabs Falcon and tries to pull him off the roof.
Wait. Before we get to that, though, enraged Nighthawk, in a Hulk-style rage, is so pissed off that Dollar Bill is still asleep that he reaches back and yells, "Rise and shine, Dumbo," and he drags Dollar Bill off the sofa and literally kicks him in the ass out the door and says, "It's checkout time, creep. Hit the road, Dollar Bill, and don't come back." And to me, this is the most glorious thing Nighthawk ever does.
And I love the 70s dialogue. Falcon's dialogue balloons here to Nighthawk. "Hey, what's with you, man? Leave the dude alone. As a Defender, you should set an example. Dig?" It is a product of its time, but I love it.
Yeah, no, me too. The Nighthawk calls him Mr. Budinsky. So there. So basically, Nighthawk is so enraged that he begins a chase. Chasing Falcon throughout this issue, basically.
Yeah.
Leaving Hulk and Hellcat and Valkyrie looking out the window, having also just woken up going, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
They're still in costume. Hellcat decides she wants to go and flirt with all the sexy hunks that are out there. Let's see here.
But I love the interplay here between Hulk and Valkyrie. Hellcat goes find her shadow cloak. She's going to go flirt with the boys. Hulk says, "Sword Girl want Hulk to smash funny dressed humans?" And Valkyrie says, "No, they're our guests. We shall make them coffee." And she takes Hulk by the hand and leads him into the kitchen. And Hulk goes with her willingly, even though he would rather smash.
Yeah, to make the coffee. Yeah, you're right. He says Hulk would rather smash. Now, 2 things on this page I want to point out. Number one, there are a couple times in this issue where one of the characters we see. So let's discuss a few other characters who we see on this page. Torpedo, one of the lamest characters in Marvel history.
Oh, come on now.
Um,
what about in Rom? Did you not enjoy him as the supporting role in Rom?
I never read Rom.
Well, see, that's your problem
That's
there.
clearly I need to remedy that. But all right, then we have Captain Ultra, who has the worst costume in Marvel history. He literally looks like the flags of the United Nations vomited on him. And then we have Paladin, who is basically a gun for hire. And this kind of thing drives me crazy in the 70s, just like it drives me crazy now. Editors are supposed to edit. Both times Paladin's name is mentioned, they spell his name wrong.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So I just want to go through some of the dialogue in this page. This is why we skipped over some of the early stuff in this issue, because we have Hellcat comes out basically to flirt with these guys. Torpedo says, I'm the Torpedo, and unfortunately I'm married. Hellcat says, too bad for you, Torpedo. And Torpedo there's actually a word balloon with Torpedo just going, humph. And then, here we go, Brian.
Can I read Captain? You read Hellcat, I'll read Captain Ultra.
Gee, you're cute. What's your handle, Honcho?
Captain Ultra's the name, Hellcat, and I'm every inch a superhero.
I'll bet you are.
This was approved by the Comics Code Authority.
I mean, I reread it and I was just like, wait, what? What? This is a 1970s all ages Marvel Comics series, and Captain Ultra is making a none too oblique reference to his cock. and Hellcat's response to I'm every inch a superhero is, I'll bet you are. I was like, okay, all right, I see what world we're in here. All right, then we have Marvel Man, soon to be Quasar, White Tiger, who I'm so happy to see in these pages. Although David Kraft's command of what minimal Spanish he has is challenged in these issues. And Nova decide that they've seen horses in the field, and they decide that they're going to play cowboy.
Yeah, basically they're going to go ride Nighthawk's horses.
So they race one another to ride the horses. Then we go ahead.
Yeah, so meanwhile, back at the ranch, the more serious-minded superheroes, Black Goliath, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, Jack of Hearts, Hercules, etc., they're standing around debating who should lead the Defenders. and
by the way, I just want to point out the one character we have not yet mentioned who shows up on this page is a character called Tagak.
Now, I did not remember him.
I had only a vague recollection of him. He has some. We should really Google him while we're on here, but he has. I believe he's South American. He has some kind of jungle cat powers, and he's also, as he mentions in passing, he's blind.
So, like Daredevil?
I believe he is like Daredevil. Hold on, let's see here. I'm looking it up. This is
right
live,
now,
folks. Tagak was a hero from another dimension who came to Earth in pursuit of a criminal from his world and first clashed with and teamed up with Daredevil. That's basically all we know other than him showing up here. But interestingly, he's
Tagak the Leopard Lord, a fictional character.
Tagak the Leopard Lord, but here's the best part about Tagak the Leopard Lord. Although he weirdly he teamed up with Daredevil, but I want now, Cullen Bunn, if you're listening, Victor Laval, you should write for Marvel. Tagak was blind but could see through the eyes of his leopard companion, Opar. Come on now.
Why has Opar never guest starred in Pet Avengers?
Exactly. So the hosts of Defenders Dialogue call out for the return of Tagak the Leopard Lord. Anyway.
That's right.
So these serious-minded Defenders for a day show up and decide the actual Defenders are a bunch of dumbasses, so they need a real leader, someone who can really lead. And they nominate and elect Hercules as the leader of the Defenders.
Which should be. That's as it should be. I mean, Hercules, he's been an Avenger. He led the champions. He's the guy. Plus, he drinks a lot of beer and he's a pompous ass. So we then have a scene with the teenage superheroes on the horses, and up in the sky above them, Nighthawk is still chasing Falcon, who's taunting him. Their chase interferes with the horse race, and then the teens lose control of the horses. You see them all racing towards the academy. Well, meanwhile, and this is my favorite scene in the book.
Okay.
Valkyrie and Hulk come outside carrying serving platters, mugs of coffee.
This is great.
And
let me just back you up for a second. Valkyrie and Hulk are carrying big serving trays of mugs of coffee. So the Incredible Hulk walks out of Richmond Riding Academy with a tray full of mugs of coffee, right, and begins to serve them to the visiting superheroes.
Well, if you're expecting, would you care for coffee, sir? No, because this is the Hulk. Hulk says, drink Sword Girl's coffee.
Yeah, and here's what I love. Paladin says, hey, what about cream and sugar? And Hulk says, drink it black.
So, one by one, we see Son of Satan, Stingray, Captain Marvel. They're all dumping their coffee out because it's terrible. And Val tells them this is her first time ever attempting to make coffee. Hercules proposes a toast. He raises his mug and he pours it out as well. And then Valkyrie stalks off. She's pissed.
Oh, well, so then we get to, I just want to back up 1 second and just say that during that Horses Gone Wild scene, Prowler's trying to ride a horse, and they're all riding with no saddles, by the way. And he's seems to, at least to me, to be imitating Yosemite Sam in the old Bugs Bunny whoa Campbell scene. So I believe that's what the intention was there. But anyway, then we get to Havoc, Iron Fist, Tagak, Torpedo, and Black Goliath conspiring because they've decided that the Hulk is a menace and they need to capture him.
This menace who just served them coffee.
Exactly. Well, no, they weren't part of the people getting served coffee. Because there's so many fucking characters in this story. All right. Then we get to Captain Ultra has been flirting with Hellcat, but Jack of Hearts comes and basically cuts in and starts flirting with her instead, which prompts a fight between Captain Ultra and Jack of Hearts. So they're about to have a fight, and now we're revealed that Captain Ultra is just as much of a douchebag as his costume makes him look. Because when he starts getting angry, Hellcat says, golly, don't get steamed, guys. We're here to boogie, not battle. Back to your 1970s dialogue. Captain Ultra says, so you're playing the field and we're the game, huh? And he shoves Hellcat, backwards.
Yes, he does.
All right, so there you go.
And what's great about this scene, you have this serious scene where this misogynistic superhero is shoving Hellcat, but in the background, flying overhead of them, you see Falcon and Nighthawk still chasing each other.
Right, exactly, yeah. Nighthawk is still trying to catch up. Then Captain Ultra and Jack of Hearts are broken up by the teenage superheroes who cannot control their runaway horses.
Who are now stampeding.
And then Hulk, as usual, is trying to find a quiet place to just chill when he is set upon by these other heroes. Now, as we get into the next issue, that's the end of the issue, which says next, sheer Hulkacost. So there you go. There's a Holocaust joke in the next issue thing. But before we get to the next issue, I want to point out something. The heroes who are attacking Hulk, Tagak, Polaris, Iron Fist, Torpedo, Havoc, Black Goliath, Stingray, and that will become not important, but of interest in a moment. Because when you turn the page to the first page of issue 62, story and art by the same team, Kraft, Buscema, and Mooney, it is a different set of characters who are attacking Hulk.
It is. Prowler is suddenly in there.
Prowler is there when he wasn't there before. Let's see. Iron Fist and Polaris are not there. Yeah, so I guess that's the difference. Oh, and Tagak is also missing.
Yeah.
So Tagak, Iron Fist, and Polaris are missing, and suddenly Prowler is there. So keep that in mind.
What's great is we see Iron Fist.
Exactly what I was going to say. Go ahead.
On horseback. I think they probably meant to draw White Tiger there. Iron Fist.
Exactly. So suddenly, Iron Fist has been so. Brian, I would say that what we need also is we need an issue where we're explaining the difference, that there's a split. This is an alternate timeline because characters have vanished, characters have moved, and now Iron Fist is suddenly one of the characters who was on horseback and on one of these runaway horses. In any case, it's just a freaking melee at this point. And what happens, of course, is that Hulk has had enough, he yells. Do you hear enough? And pounds the ground, and all the heroes go flying.
Meanwhile, on the fringes of this superhero free-for-all, Iron Man suddenly arrives.
Out of nowhere.
Yep.
Iron Man suddenly arrives. Go ahead.
Because Tony Stark is, he doesn't have enough going on in his day. Tony Stark has shown up to, A, deliver a letter to Hellcat that's been laying around Avengers Mansion for quite a while, and B, to let them know that because of Dollar Bill's TV documentary, hordes of supervillains have also declared themselves to be defenders and currently are tearing up Manhattan.
And so what I love about this is, instead of the Avengers stepping in and doing something about it, Iron Man flies out to, was it Staten Island?
Yeah, Staten Island.
Flies out to Staten Island and basically says, hey, you guys made this mess, go clean it up. Even though people's lives are in jeopardy back in Manhattan, he's like, no, it's your problem.
Well, now, I can't remember the time frame. Was this during the whole Tony Stark demon in a bottle alcoholism storyline?
I don't know, but it
could
would
that
make
account
sense.
Could that account for Iron Man's behavior?
Maybe. Maybe. All right, so Hercules has now learned what Iron Man has just passed along. He rips a tree out of the ground and swats all of the misbehaving superheroes, calming them down, and then basically announcing what is going on. He explains what Iron Man has just said. Hulk says basically, oh, now you want me to help you guys even though you're all attacking me? And as usual, he fucks off and leaves them to their own devices.
And leaves the Defenders with a first. Three people in charge of the Defenders.
Right, yeah, exactly. So now, those three people... go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, those three people decide, or Valkyrie announces that in order to stop this thing, there are enough Defenders now to split into 3 teams, led by Hercules, Valkyrie herself, and Nighthawk.
Right. And then they pick teams like you used to pick teams in school, for kickball. Hercules picks Havoc, Hellcat, Captain Ultra, Black Goliath, White Tiger, and Iron Fist. That's a really good team.
Yep.
Valkyrie goes with Falcon, Torpedo, Stingray, the Prowler, and Jack of Hearts. Nighthawk gets the kids that are left over.
Exactly.
He gets Nova, Son of Satan, the mysterious Tagak, Polaris, and Marvel Man.
Yeah, and then Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel, who will later become Captain Marvel herself, and Paladin, whose name is misspelled again, they say, no, we were busy. I've taken off. Ms. Marvel's like, I'm an Avenger now, so I don't need this crap. So they take off, and then the 3 teams split up, and they head to Manhattan to stop some miscreants from their misdeeds. Hellcat decides the others can fly, but Hellcat's team is on foot, and so she gets her little sports car that she basically has stolen from Nighthawk at this point. And they all pile onto her car.
Which, Sal Buscema reading this script, he's like, how the fuck am I supposed to draw that?
Well, what's great, though, is that panel on this page with them all, she's driving away and they're basically hanging on with their legs flying out behind them. Black Goliath is running alongside. They've all sort of climbed on. That's a great panel.
It is. It really is. And then we get to the third group, Nighthawk's group, and he says, "We can't let them hog all the glory. What are we waiting for, heroes?" And the son of Satan says, "You." What's great, as Nighthawk's team are taking off, you see a thought balloon from Polaris saying, or actually, no, I guess it's son of Satan.
No, it's Polaris.
It's saying, "It's too late now, but I wish I was on Valkyrie's team."
All right, so they're flying through town, and they see a guy screaming, "Help, police! A defender just stole my car!" These major superheroes stop the car, they lift it up, and they bring it back, and they find not a supervillain masquerading as a defender behind the wheel, but the son of the guy who's joyriding in his car, and the guy then gets pissed off because they've marked up his car. So then we have
cut to Soviet Russia, where this great danger to all mankind that Project Sergei, or the codename Sergei, has been investigating is finally revealed, and it is a giant amoeba.
Yeah. Well, so let me just say, for people who love 1950s atomic horror or atomic sci-fi, this is sort of classic stuff. So the between the biohazard or biotech experiments that Sergei was doing and the atomic bomb that he exploded in this area, it's now turned into basically Hedorah from the Godzilla series.
Right.
So there you go.
So he tries to fight it, but the amoeba is too strong for him. It seizes codename Sergei and starts to absorb him, draining him. You got to remember, he was born in the heart of a nuclear explosion, and it's now draining his nuclear energy. And once it drains him, the amoeba will be invincible. And on that ominous note, Chris, what do we return to?
We return to Hellcat's team somehow all sitting on top of her car with Captain Ultra flying behind. And again, we're still at this place where Kraft is now giving Hellcat dialogue, specifically writing her as if she were still Patsy Walker from the old Patsy model series,
right?
From the 50s. So she says, "Golly, we're here to help them. Jumpin' Jehoshaphat, do you see what I see?" Sorry, I just can't.
As it turns out, some supervillains are cleaning house in New York City's Diamond District. There's a couple there that the Defenders have fought before. Sagittarius.
Sagittarius of the Zodiac.
Yep, and Porcupine, who you remember from the Headman Nebulon Elf with a Gun saga.
And Whirlwind, and the, what's that guy's name?
The Beetle?
The Beetle and the Blob.
That's right.
Are all there. And the car screeches to a halt. They all sort of jump/fall out. And the battle begins. And it's actually really fun.
It's a very well done battle. It's so nice to see Sal Buscema back on this book, albeit too briefly. Electro suddenly shows up and Batroc the Leaper.
You have Electro, you have Batroc the Leaper, and again, this is an example of don't know who's in this scene, but just adding villains at random. Because it's White Tiger versus Batroc the Leaper, which is a great matchup. Black Goliath versus Whirlwind, Hellcat versus Sagittarius, Electro versus Iron Fist, and Hercules versus the Blob, which is great.
And what's worth pointing out, now in the 70s there was a lot more continuity to Marvel Comics than there is today.
Right.
But even then, it's not like you would really see Electro fighting Iron Fist. Electro, he was pretty much a Spider-Man villain.
Right.
And here it's only a couple panels. But thanks to the wonder of the Defenders and the concept of the non-team, you can see matchups like that.
Right, and there were no video games.
Right.
So this was really our first experience of this kind of insanity, where you basically throw all these characters into a blender and see who ends up fighting whom.
Yeah, it's true. You know, this predates all the big multi-crossover events.
Contest
of
of Champions and all of that.
Yeah, you know, Secret Wars, any of that. This predates all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, let's go back to the idea that the core concept of how this all happens is Dollar Bill is an asshole. I mean, it's not like the Grandmaster of the universe has drawn these characters together and made them fight each other. They're fighting because Dollar Bill is a dick.
So then the cops show up, and you know.
And I remember this so clearly, Brian. I'll let you explain it, but I remember so clearly as a kid reading this, going, "Wait, that's not fair." Go ahead.
Well, the cops show up. They draw their guns, and you know, the one cop says, "Somebody tell me what's going on here." And Hercules says, "I am Hercules, leader of the legendary defenders. We were in the midst of subduing yon thieves." And he says, "Arrest them." But then Sagittarius says, "Baloney. I'm Sagittarius, leader of the real defenders." And he points at the superheroes and says, "They're the crooks. They saw our TV special and are committing crimes in our name." So Hercules and Sagittarius are both arguing with the cops, and the cop says, "You know what? Fuck it. You're all under arrest."
And that's the end of the issue. And that is the moment I was just like, as a kid, I was like, wait, what? That's not right. All right. So then we have an unlikely cover to the next issue, which I still to this day don't really understand, but okay. And it's Valkyrie going berserk, which we'll explain that when we get to it. This is issue 64, The Defenders. And on the cover is this guy, I can't remember his name. It's like Joe the Gorilla or something. He's just
Joe the Gorilla.
He's a big bearded dude. Then there's a guy with a pair of 6 guns, and a cowboy hat. And I believe that is a Marvel Comics villain. But
he's Pecos. I know Hawkeye fought him at one point. 2 Gun.
But I don't think he's even in this story.
He is, very briefly.
Oh, okay. Joe the Gorilla is, but I didn't remember him being there. All right. And we have the Falcon, for some reason, flying in the background. All right. I just want to point out that this issue, written by Kraft, penciled by Buscema, and actually, in this case, inked by Don Perlin.
Yep. And we open right where we left off, with the cop standing there, Sagittarius and Hercules arguing about who's the good guys, who's the bad guys. And, you know, the cop's going to arrest them all. But then Hellcat steps up and says, "Well, no. Hercules and I are both ex-Avengers." But, you know, she doesn't have any ID. While Hercules is arguing with the cop.
Well, Hercules does produce his Avengers ID.
Yeah. You know, Sagittarius wisely says, "Screw this. Let's split up and take off." And the supervillains get away.
Sagittarius realizes once Hercules produces Avengers ID that the clock is ticking, so they all take off. And by the way, I should note, Plant Man is mysteriously here, and I don't remember him being in the previous issue.
He was not in the previous issue, but hey, you know.
But suddenly Plant Man is also here. I just love the fact that it's just like whatever villains you can think of and you feel like drawing at the moment, throw them into this scene.
I wonder if it's even that. Think about, Plant Man, Sagittarius, Porcupine. These are all villains that the Defenders have fought before. And you know Buscema's got to be pressed for time because it's 70s Marvel. He's drawing like 8 books a month.
Right.
I wonder if he just thought, you know what, fuck it. I remember how to draw Plant Man from my previous run of the Defenders. I'm going to put him in this panel.
Yeah. Who else was in this? I don't remember. Oh, God. Okay. So, at least in this case, the heroes don't change, although some heroes do vanish from this team.
Yes, they do.
Because if you look back on this, let's see. Is it Prowler? Hold on. Who was it? So I just for my own edification, I just need to go see.
Prowler's missing from this scene, correct.
Yeah, but he's also missing from the last scene in which we saw these characters. I'm just looking back. Yeah, so he was at some point he was with them, and now he's gone. But anyway,
So the supervillains bust into Grand Central Station. We see Batroc, Sagittarius, Blob, Whirlwind, the Beetle, and Plant Man. And Hercules' team gives chase.
Yes, and I just want to interrupt for 1 second and say, this is one of those places where an editor is important. White Tiger's, excuse me, dialogue. Hurry, muy compadres, before they board the downtown express. Okay, I'm just, just like, come on, man.
Well, and I would agree. It's not only our Hispanic friends who get that sort of treatment, but also the French. Witness Batroc the Leaper's dialogue. Follow Batroc the Leaper, my friends, and we shall lose les defenders in les subway.
Sorry. Oh, God, the 70s. Yeah. And then I'm rooting for Whirlwind because he's fighting Captain Ultra, and I feel like Whirlwind is definitely the guy that I want to win that fight.
And Whirlwind has the best dialogue here. He says, this is the first time Whirlwind's fought a flying rainbow. What's your name anyway, fella? Captain Eyesore?
1970s burn right there. Yeah, there we go. So, the Beetle sees the train pulling in. And the bad guys tear the conductor out through the wall of the train, and then they board the train. And the plan is that Electro is going to use his powers to double the train's speed. The train is pulling away, and Black Goliath decides, nope, that's not going to happen. He grabs the back of the train and a pillar that's holding up the roof, and is hanging on, but he's not going to be able to hold on for long, Brian.
Right. And he doesn't. The last car that he's holding on to snaps free. The train takes off. White Tiger laments that all is lost. But no! Captain Ultra finally comes in handy because he can track them from above ground with his scanner vision.
You know what? If I had scanner powers, it would be like the Cronenberg movie, and I'd blow up Captain Ultra's head.
See, I want to write. This is why I wish Marvel still had a Max line. I want to write a Captain Ultra miniseries where he's this horrible human being. He's it's 2018 and he's still this misogynistic macho dude from the 70s. And scanner vision would play into that, but
yeah, that would be he should be the next hero who suddenly appears in the present, like the Sentry and Voyager, and except unlike Captain America, who wakes up in the present and is like a heroic figure, he wakes up in the present after having been frozen in the misogynistic 70s, and everyone treats him like the total fucking douche that he is.
All right, well, we then cut to Empire State University, to the man who started this whole thing, Dollar Bill. He's annoyed the Defenders, and now they're gone. So now he's decided to go annoy Professor Turk and Ledge, who is still recovering from his attack by Lunatic.
Yeah, and listeners, we're reminding you that Professor Turk, we all know, is secretly lunatic.
Yes. Then we cut back to Wall Street, where Nighthawk's team of defenders confront the same teenage boy that they confronted earlier in the day.
Although now he's snatching a purse from a woman who turns out to be his mom, and he was just trying to get his allowance, which sets off the other heroes who've been following Nighthawk, and they are done with Nighthawk.
And they collectively quit.
Yeah. Nighthawk calls them crybabies and says, I call the shots, and if you don't like it, lump it. And that offends them all. So yes, they quit.
Right. We then find out that on the trading floor of the stock exchange, there's yet another team of supervillains. They're led by Libra. Libra, you'll remember, he fought the Defenders as part of Scorpio.
Yes, and now we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, though, Brian.
Yeah, we've got Boomerang, we've got Shocker.
We've got Libra. We've got Leapfrog.
Yep, Toad.
Who's a dude in a frog costume.
Leapfrog was a Spider-Man villain, was he not?
Oh, yeah, or Daredevil, I think.
You got Toad from Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Toad, Joe the Gorilla, And
who I don't remember at all.
I don't either. And his name is just a dude with a beard, and his name is Joe the Gorilla. What is this now, Brian? He could have just walked up, seen the supervillains, and gone, "I'm Joe the Gorilla." He's a guy in civilian clothes with a beard, with no costume, who's beating up an old lady, and his name is Joe the Gorilla. Can you include him in your Captain Ultra series, please? All right, and the one guy we haven't mentioned, is that Melter in the background?
Yes, that's Melcher in the background.
I'm ashamed that I know that.
He gets no dialogue in the entire
He's just there, melting something. Yeah. I don't know what is... Anyway, they're attacking the New York Stock Exchange. Shocker's trying to force this trader to make him $1 million and put him in his own Swiss bank account.
Right. And then Nighthawk busts in and has to fight all these supervillains by himself. And he's attacked by the Melter, who knocks him out. And Libra, having fought the Defenders before, says, "Let's get out of here before the other Defenders arrive." But Nighthawk, he's down, but he's not down for the count, and he follows them.
All right, so then, he follows them into the subway, or he's trying to follow them, and we're back in the subway, and Hercules stops the train by getting in front of it with his body and body slamming it, not stopping to wonder whether there might still be passengers, like civilian passengers. And the supervillains get off the train, and now, weirdly, some of the villains that were there before are not there.
And there's new villains.
But there's a new villain, including the Looter.
Where the fuck did he come from?
And who is he? He's got the face of an alien from Doctor Who. Like, what? I don't even know what he is.
The Looter showed up in Spider-Man, Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, and I believe was killed by either Scourge or the Punisher.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm really glad. In fact, you know what? If this is actually the story. If Cullen is indeed listening, Cullen, this is the series that you need to do now. You need to do a Deadpool time travel story where Deadpool travels back in time, sees Dollar Bill's TV show, and goes to join the Defenders on this day, and is then a part of this whole story, and we relive it through the present-day Deadpool's point of view.
Oh, my God. And you use the original artwork.
You just add Deadpool.
Add Deadpool. That's fucking brilliant.
And he's just commenting on everything that's so stupid in this story. And like, where did these characters go?
Not only should Marvel, C.B. Cebulski, he's in there. He needs to make a big splash. He needs to right the ship.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it. That'll make a career, CB.
Yeah, not only should he have Cullen write this, I think you and I should be tapped as editors so that Paladin's name can finally be focused.
I agree. That our role will be fixing the misspellings. We will get someone to consult to correct the Spanish and French. In any case, Blob grabs the Hellcat from behind with the immortal line, "What's new, pussycat?" And Hellcat's line is the perfect line, Brian. What does Hellcat respond?
"Boy, you've got bad breath, Buster." And Blob says, "And you ain't got no breath." And then suddenly, what's been funny and hilarious for all these issues suddenly takes a dark turn because the Blob is actually killing Hellcat. He's choking her to death. And at this point, we see, now we've talked in previous issues, Hellcat has these very fledgling psionic psychic powers. She hasn't used them much in the Defenders series because she doesn't know how to control them yet.
Right.
But here, as she's just about to die,
and that panel is pretty harrowing. I mean, there's a couple panels where you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah. As she's about to die, her subconscious barriers that hold back these psychic powers just shatter. And she lashes out with this psionic blast that just levels everybody, superhero, supervillain alike.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, it's a great scene. And what I love about it is you can't have seen this coming.
No.
So I did love that. It's a great moment, a great scene, and a nice usage of the character. So then elsewhere, Nighthawk has shown up and found Valkyrie's team. And Valkyrie says, what happened to the others? And Nighthawk says, they left. And then he explains what happened with Libra and his group of supervillains. This group of defenders now goes to do something about that, finds them on the docks. They get to the docks, Brian, and now here we have Pecos, who is another villain who has randomly shown up.
Two Gun Kid was busy that day.
Yeah. So we have Pecos, Joe the Gorilla, Toad, Libra, and Shocker. So this is a major deal.
Describe what happens next. I have to Google Joe the Gorilla while you do.
All right. So basically, what happens is that these guys are boarding the Staten Island ferry to escape, which is really dumb because it's going to be very slow moving. The defenders show up, and Libra says, "Well, all I wanted was to balance chaos and order, and I've accomplished that. So I'm leaving." And Toad also leaves. So the defenders are on board the ferry now, and Falcon and Valkyrie and Stingray and I think Nighthawk and a few others, they're fighting. Stingray's taking out Pecos, but Joe the Gorilla is choking Valkyrie in a very similar manner to how Hellcat was just choked. And a similar result occurs, which is, in this case, remember, folks, that Valkyrie is the immortal consciousness of an Asgardian warrior, and the body of a human woman named Barbara Norris. That's the simpler version of her origin. And all of a sudden, that dichotomy breaks her mind, and she imagines that everyone around her are trolls and the kinds of monsters that she would have fought in her life as an Asgardian warrior, and she just loses her shit, goes crazy, and attacks everyone, friend and foe alike. This is the last straw for many of the heroes who have come to be a defender for the day, including Falcon, Prowler, Stingray. The Prowler knows when he's not wanted. He says, I resign from the defenders effective immediately. So there you go.
Right.
What did you find, Brian?
Well, Joe the Gorilla, this is interesting. He's only had 2 appearances in the Marvel Universe. He first appeared in Avengers issue 77, where he was pretending to be one of the Avengers.
Okay.
And then he doesn't show up again until Defenders, where he's pretending to be a Defender.
Oh, my God.
And
once again, folks, you're not seeing this, you're only hearing it, but he's a dude in civilian-like street clothes with long hair and a beard who calls himself Joe the Gorilla.
Yeah, and what the internet tells us is that Joe the Gorilla prefers chokeholds and sufficiently strong enough to manage to hold a struggling Valkyrie prisoner with his bare hands.
Oh
That's really all we know about him.
All right, so we're back in the battle. Nighthawk is so happy to see that Valkyrie has kicked the asses of both their enemies and what he refers to as those Johnny-come-lately defenders. But of course, when he rushes up to her, she thinks he's a troll and she attacks him. But he's pleading with her to recognize him, and when she finally does, she starts to sort of collapse, and she realizes what has happened to her. What have I become? That which I most despise, a berserker who revels in bloodlust. So, Jack of Hearts and Falcon are climbing back on board the ferry, and they're quitting. Nighthawk says, good, I didn't ask you to join, Dollar Bill did. So they argue a little bit, and when he turns around, Valkyrie has collapsed almost completely, and Nighthawk promises to get her help. Money's no object. Whatever help she needs, he will provide.
But what earthly physician could heal this seething inner conflict, this inner war inside of her between her Asgardian persona of Valkyrie, and remember, Valkyrie inhabits the mortal body of a woman named Barbara Norris.
And I'm pretty sure that that's not how we spell Norris.
No.
So,
yeah.
Again, the editor asleep at the wheel here. Go ahead, wrap it up for us, Brian.
Well, we then cut back to Russia, where you'll remember last time we left off with Red Guardian, she'd been inside this Soviet Research Institute because she was so radioactive. They couldn't let her go out anywhere. Russian scientists are saying she's beyond our help. She's destined to remain a radioactive being forever. She's going to have to remain quarantined for the rest of her life. Red Guardian, really no longer Tanya Belinsky. She's become a living being of pure atomic energy. Well, suddenly, a Russian general rushes in with news that codename Sergei has been located, and they see photographic evidence of the giant amoeba, and they decide that indeed all of mankind is doomed.
Once again, all of mankind is doomed. Well, listen, that wraps up this episode of Defenders Dialogue. We'll have to pick up with 65 in the next episode. And I will say that 65 is an interesting issue because it's really it wraps up and cleans up a number of stories that have been ongoing, and it also launches us off into other stories.
It does indeed.
Yeah, interesting.
We'll get to that next week. I want to remind folks about Victor Laval's Destroyer, a mind-bending blend of horror and science fiction and family drama. It combines Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with concerns ripped straight from today's current events. The Onion's AV Club describes it as thrilling, tragic, and topical. It's illustrated with astounding beauty and flair, and now available as a trade paperback from Boom Studios. If you enjoy this show, you may enjoy Three Guys with Beards. That's Chris's main podcast that he co-hosts with authors James Moore and Jonathan Mayberry. You might also want to check out The Horror Show with Brian Keene, which features, as you can guess, me, along with Mary Sangiovanni and Dave Thomas. Both of those shows are available wherever you listen to this show. One important thing, folks, that we don't mention a lot, but I want to bring it up today before Chris and I sign off. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, your computer. Even if you don't listen to us on iTunes, even if you use an other preferred method to listen to the show, please consider going to iTunes and leaving us a rating. If you do that, it helps our ad dollars. It helps our impressions. We would really, really appreciate it. And one more reminder, our engineer is Tommy Clark. He also has a podcast called the Necrocasticon. It's available wherever you're listening to Defenders Dialogue as well, courtesy of the Project Entertainment Network.
And I just want to add one last thing. I think this was our best episode ever, Brian.
This was the most fun we've had, for sure. For sure.
All right, well, sir, what do we say, Brian?
We say dynamite!
All right, on that note.
I'm sorry, no, wrong 70s reference. We say, hey!
All right, I'm done now, because pretty soon you'll be doing, like, Mork from Ork or something.
Nano.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Excelsior, true believers.
Three Guys with Beards.
The Project Entertainment Network store, featuring t-shirts, mugs, stickers, hoodies and more from your favorite Project Entertainment Network podcasts.
Ink stains, Scribbler's Rest.
The Horror Show with Brian Keene.
Why not show your loyalty by wearing a cool product from the podcast group and show off to your friends?
It Cooks.
Armcast.
The Mondo Method.
Monster Attack.
Necrocastical.
Go to projectentertainmentnetwork.com and click on the store tab for more details.
The Liars Club podcast.
Pizza.
The Lunch Ladies Book Club.
Matters of Faith.
The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with stuff from the best podcasts on the internet.
The Curtain Jerkers.
Buttercup of Doom.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.